Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for Communicate with Confidence, introducing SoundSuccess, sponsored by Advanced Bionics and presented by Valerie Beau, Senior Rehabilitation Program Manager, Krista Heavner, Cochlear Implant Consumer Specialist, and Tina Childress, Educational Audiologist and Bilateral AB Recipient. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment to thank Jody Eckerd, our CART provider this evening. Thank you very much, Jody. I'm really looking forward to your presentation. It looks really interesting, and I think it's it looks like a very valuable tool for people who are using hearing aids or cochlear implants. So I'll just go ahead and let you get started, Valerie.
Okay, thanks so much, Nancy. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. Let me just advance my slides here, just a moment. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty advancing my slides, so just bear with me. But while I'm getting ready to do that, I just wanted to ask how many of you in the audience wear hearing aids? And I'm wondering how many of you wear cochlear implants. Maybe you wear other hearing technology. We welcome you, and today when we talk about SoundSuccess, this is a rehabilitation tool that's meant for you. Now, Nancy, if you can hear me, I'm actually not able to advance my slide deck. I wonder if you can offer, oh, there we go. It just started working. So I want you to think back if you are new to wearing hearing aids, if you're new to wearing a cochlear implant, maybe you're struggling with your hearing right now, or perhaps you're thinking about that you need a different hearing aid, or you're considering a cochlear implant. Think about how well think about a situation. How well do you feel that you hear in that situation? Do you feel connected to others in that situation, or do you struggle? And also, I want you to think back to a situation that you're successful, is easy for you to hear in. Now think about a situation that's difficult for you to hear in. How important is it to you to be able to improve your hearing? If it is important to you to improve your hearing, then do you know what to do? Where can you go? What can you use to help improve your hearing? These are the reasons that we developed SoundSuccess, a tool or a resource that you can use to help you maximize the potential of your hearing technology, a place that you can go to practice listening to speech in a very unthreatening, safe place so that you can feel more confident in your ability to hear, which is going to help you get back into life and doing those things that you'd enjoy doing. So what is SoundSuccess? SoundSuccess is Advanced Bionics' new rehabilitation resource. And what it is it's an interactive online functional rehabilitation program. And the goals, again, of SoundSuccess is to help you maximize the potential of your hearing. In order to get access to SoundSuccess, you just need to open a browser window. We recommend that you use Chrome or Firefox. Once you get to that browser, just type in this address, abrehabportal.com. Once you get into the portal, you can choose SoundSuccess. And this is the place that you go to start SoundSuccess, or if you leave SoundSuccess and want to come back and practice, this is where you go to return to SoundSuccess. SoundSuccess was developed in the clinic because we wanted to develop a tool that you could use outside of your audiologist's office to work on improving your ability to hear and understand speech. But SoundSuccess is also based on research. Research says that hearing loss can be associated with cognitive decline if it's undiagnosed or untreated. And in fact, 26% of Americans over the age of 65 do live alone. So what does this mean? This means that they don't have a communication partner at home, somebody to practice communicating, practicing listening to voices. So it makes sense for them to use some sort of an online rehabilitation program. The research shows us that using an online auditory rehabilitation program does in fact help you to improve your ability to understand speech. And not only does it help you to improve your ability to understand speech, it also can help you to improve the quality of your life. What computerized training offers you in comparison to working live voice with a therapist or a communication partner is it provides you this option of training in a home environment or training on the go. So this type of training program, an online auditory training program, can increase training opportunities for you because it allows you to practice anywhere, anytime. It also will help you to increase the benefit that's achieved by you wearing hearing aids or cochlear implants or whatever hearing technology you're using, because you're actively engaging the brain in listening practice. And in turn, what that does for you is it reduces a potential dissatisfaction that you could have with your hearing aid or cochlear implant or other hearing technology that you use. So when we developed SoundSuccess, we had some goals in mind. The first goal was to reinforce the brain's ability to perceive and understand spoken language. The way that SoundSuccess achieves this is by providing you the opportunity to train at your own level. So perhaps you're struggling right now to hear, or you're new to listening with your hearing technology. SoundSuccess allows you to practice listening and speech reading at the same time. This is something very unique to other programs that you may have heard of or that you may have been using. You actually have the capability to turn a video on so that while you're listening, you're also practicing speech reading by looking at the speaker's face. Now, as you get more confident, or if you want to increase your challenge level, you have the opportunity to work with just listening. So you can turn that video off and just listen to the speaker, or you could practice doing a combination of both. SoundSuccess was also developed to really practice real-world listening. And what does this mean? It means that we're offering both male and female voices for you to listen to. We also are offering different U.S. dialects, the major dialects across the United States, so that if you live in the southern region, you can practice listening to a southern voice. Maybe you live on the East Coast, so you want kind of that northeastern accent, or maybe you live in the Midwest, so you'd prefer to hear that neutral accent, or as you're progressing in your listening, you want to listen to different dialects and try to understand them. So this is what's offered in the program. We also offer what we call functional language. And what that means is we're not just offering word lists, we're offering everyday words, sentences, and context that you might encounter every day, like making an appointment, or going shopping, or listening to a conversation about what you're going to do on vacation. So these real world contexts will help you to improve your real world hearing and listening, communication, and understanding. We also know that the world is not a very quiet place. So when you're sitting in a quiet audiology booth, this doesn't represent real everyday life for you. In fact, the world's quite a noisy place, so SoundSuccess also offers listening and noise training. There's options to add noise and different levels of noise to your listening practice. SoundSuccess intends to help you boost your confidence in what you're hearing. And the way that this is done is by allowing you to train in an unthreatening environment, wherever that may be. Maybe it's at home, maybe it's while you're on the go riding the train going to work. And it also gives you feedback on your performance immediately. So you don't have to wonder, did I get that right or did I get that wrong? You can train at your own pace and receive immediate feedback on whether your answer was correct, or you can ask to repeat the answer, or you can say, I want to skip this one. And finally, SoundSuccess allows you to track your functional hearing status over time so that you can see where did you start when you were first starting your listening practice and where are you today. That will help you see the successes that you've had, and also to communicate that to your audiologist, your family, your friends, your therapist. It might also help you identify areas that you're struggling in and that you need more support. So let's go through a couple of the significant features of SoundSuccess. When we think of SoundSuccess, think of it as a very individualized rehabilitation program. So you can set up SoundSuccess to work at the level that you are most comfortable with. The first way that this is offered to you is by offering you 6 different speakers. So each one of these speakers has stars underneath their headshots. And what the stars mean is 5 stars means that they are very easy to understand through speech reading and hearing. If there's 1 star, it means that they may be more challenging. What I want to alert you to is that the star rating is dynamic, meaning that as you work in SoundSuccess, you can also rate the speakers so that you're getting a real-time rating system of how difficult speakers are to understand. So you can choose your speaker and your dialect. So there's a Southern dialect, there's a Northeastern dialect, there's a Latino dialect, high voice, low voice. There's a very neutral accent. So you can listen to each speaker and choose your speaker. You can choose to have the speech reading cues on or off. You can decide to turn the speech reading cues off so that you can work and just challenge your listening, what we call an auditory only environment. You can work in quiet and then finally challenge yourself in noise. So multiple speakers and multiple listening environments helps you to build the skills that you need for your everyday life. SoundSuccess also has immediate feedback. So what this does for you is it allows you to work at your own pace, to work at your own level of frustration or success so that you can repeat a sentence as many times as you need to or as few times as you need to, depending on the day or the practice session that you're working at. It also allows you to really increase your confidence because you're getting that feedback that you were correct or that you repeated again. And so then you're going to stay with that program as you're feeling more confident, and that more practice was really going to promote that optimal auditory learning. So now I'm going to walk you through what SoundSuccess looks like. Once you log into abrehabportal.com, you're going to land on SoundSuccess. You're going to go into SoundSuccess and land on this home page. On this home page, what you'll first find is that there's a language selector in the far right. And you'll choose US English. And then you'll choose, if you look in the lower left-hand corner of the screen under listening practice, you can decide where do you want to start your listening practice. Do you want to start with the beginning listening or advanced listening? But before you even get started with your listening practice, I would encourage you to set your hearing goals. So on the far right, there's a downloadable worksheet under Set Your Hearing Goals that you can write down your hearing goals and then share those goals with your audiologist, with your family, with your friends. Then you can also download a sheet called under Track Your Progress that will help you track your progress over time. This is what the hearing goal sheet looks like. Again, it's something that you can download and print, you can fill out, and then you can share with your family and your friends and your audiologist, and also to help you set some hearing goals for yourself. Then when you're tracking your progress, you'll see there's 3 sheets that you can download. What this allows you to do is to track the specific listening environments that you're working in. So were you working on speech reading and listening? Did you progress to listening only? Were you working with noise? What level of noise were you working on? Which activity were you working on? So this is a way that you can track your progress, and it's a great way to have conversations with your audiologist when you're talking about things that are going really well, or maybe it'll help you to identify areas that you're struggling so that you have specific examples to share with your audiologist. I also want to alert you to the video player settings section on that homepage. So at the very bottom of the homepage, you'll see video player settings. I would encourage you to set up your video player settings before you start your listening practice. So in the video player settings, what it allows you to do is to choose your speaker. So you can click on a speaker, then you can listen to them. You can decide if you want speech reading cues on or if you want them off. You can decide if you want the noise on or off. You can also click into a full screen mode while you're doing the listening exercises. It's also a place you can go if you want to change a speaker. So this is a screenshot from an Android phone that shows you where those video player settings are. So when you're working in the activity, always look at the bottom of that screen for that video player setting. And this is where you can go, and when you click in, here's an example of underneath that screen where you see the speaker, it says change speaker. If you click on change speaker, you'll see the different speakers, and you can choose a speaker or you can choose to randomize the speakers. When you're working in an activity and you decide you're ready to challenge yourself, you no longer need the speech reading cues, there's a little button that allows you to turn the video off. Once you turn the video off, here's a screenshot of what it looks like from an Android phone. So once you're ready to begin your listening practice, you have the choice of beginning listeners, a section called Getting Started or Up and Running. I would recommend that if you're a beginning listener and you're just adapting to hearing with your hearing aids or your cochlear implants, maybe you're adjusting to a new program that's been put on your hearing aid or cochlear implant, I'd advise you to begin at beginning listeners. What this is it's closed set practice. So it limits the number of potential answers, which makes it a little bit easier when you're just beginning to get used to hearing with your technology. Here's a screenshot of the beginning listener section, so that there are a list of 6 different exercises. When you click on one of those exercise titles, so for example, listening to paragraphs is one of the beginner exercises. When I click on listening to paragraphs, here I see the different topics or activities under each title. When you're ready to challenge your listening skills, or maybe you want to try out some of the different hearing features on your hearing aids or cochlear implants, advanced listeners can go to this Up and Running section. So here's a screenshot of what Up and Running looks like on your phone. So this is a section that really can help you gain confidence using your technology. The reason it's more difficult is because it has what we call open set practice. Open set practice means that there's an unpredicted, unlimited number of options to be the correct answer. And then as you progress, it also includes conversation practice, which we know is fairly challenging. So this is really a section for advanced listeners to go to, or when you're ready to challenge your listening skills. Here are the 3 different exercises that are in here. Topic-based sentences. What are they talking about? Conversations. But you'll see that when you click on one of the exercises, so for example, if I clicked on topic-based sentences, you'll see that there's a variety of different topics that I could click on to start some activities under topic-based sentences. Something else that's built into SoundSuccess is a way to track your progress. So within SoundSuccess, there is real-time activity tracking, which makes it really easy for you to figure out where did you leave off when you were last in the program. So what you'll see is a little circle, and that circle will show you which exercises you've started, which ones you've completed, which ones you're still working on. And then under each of the different exercises, you'll see how many you've completed in that section. So this is a great way just to figure out where did you last leave off and to really track where are you going to next. And as I mentioned before, there's also the sheet, the tracking progress sheet that you can download. This is a better sheet to use to track your scores over time and track the different types of listening cues you used. So did you have speech reading on? Were you just listening alone, or were you using speech reading plus listening? This also allows you to track your listening environment. What level of noise did you use? Did you work in quiet? And this can give you really good information that will help you figure out where your challenge level is and have really good conversations with your audiologist when you go to one of your programming appointments to talk about what was challenging and give some very specific examples so that your audiologist can help you hear your best. Now I'm going to show you an overview video. There's no words, and what you're going to see is a click-through demonstration of working through SoundSuccess, and I'll kind of talk you through what you're seeing. Okay, so when we enter SoundSuccess, we're going to log into the abrehabportal.com. this is what you're going to see. You're going to see SoundSuccess, and you can click on the Go button. When you click on the Go button, it's going to bring you to this home page. And remember, choose your language. I'd recommend that you choose US English, unless of course you want other dialects. And look over here to the right, set your hearing goals. You can click and download the hearing goals sheet. And underneath that, you'll also see the track your progress that we spoke about. So you click on track your progress, and then it'll allow you to download this series of sheets to help track your progress. There's that video player setting. Here's the 6 different speakers. You can choose a speaker. You can listen to the speaker. And here they've chosen this speaker. You can press the play button and listen to their voice to decide if this is a speaker that you want to use for your listening practice. Maybe you decide that you want noise. Here's the different levels of noise that you can sample and try. You can also turn the video on or off. And then you also can set that video to play again, and you can go into full screen mode by clicking on the double arrow. And then to click back, the normal screen, you can also go to the change speaker, and you'll see a list of the different speakers, and you can choose a different speaker, and then you can practice listening to that speaker and decide if you want to continue your listening practice. If you get into the Getting Started section, we'll just show you some examples of different types of activities and what they look like. So we just clicked on listening to paragraphs. You read along and listen to the speaker. Here we're going into sentence length, and we're choosing one of the topics that says start here. And what you do is you're listening to that speaker, and then you're answering questions. After you answer the question, here's that immediate feedback. Here's another example. Listening to the speaker, and then you'll be answering questions. You select an answer. There's that immediate feedback. You'll see there's other topics and types of activities. Here you're listening to the speaker and choosing each word that you heard in that sentence. And then you're going to check if you heard it correctly. This is another section that works on dates, times, and places. And now let's go to the more advanced section, which is up and running. Here's a section called you're listening to topics. So you listen to the speaker, and after the speaker's done, you say that you're ready to answer questions about what the speaker said. So you have to remember what they said and then answer questions. And here's another example. You're listening to the speaker, you have to remember what they said, and then you decide if you're ready to answer questions or if you want to play the video again. When you're ready to answer questions, you'll have a selection of questions. You choose your answer and get that immediate feedback. Now, another nice feature is this green button. It helps you continue where you left off. So each time you come back into the program, you'll see that green button and you can click on it to pick up where you left off. So this just provides you with a nice overview of the SoundSuccess program. So when you use SoundSuccess, it really can help you to practice improving your ability to hear and understand speech. And when you can hear and understand all of those conversations around you in different environments, it's really going to help you increase your confidence. And when you increase your confidence, you're going to participate more in those communication situations, which will help you restore your quality of life because you're going to get back to doing all the things that you love doing that maybe you stepped away from because you felt like you weren't very confident hearing in those situations. So we hope that by using SoundSuccess, you'll really lead to that restored quality of life. Now I'm going to turn it over to Krista Heavner, and she is a auditory verbal therapist, and she's also one of our consumer specialists, and she's going to talk a little bit about some tips just from a therapy perspective.
Great.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Valerie. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you sound great. Thanks.
Okay,
Krista.
perfect. All right, so from a therapist standpoint, I was excited that SoundSuccess was developed because we have a lot of resources out there that are for children. And I just felt like we were really lacking with the adult resources. And many adults, as we know, do live alone and just do not have the ability to get to a live therapist. And what I was finding when people would relay to me their frustration or their experiences, they would often indicate that they were trying things that were too challenging. Maybe they were jumping straight to talking on the phone and were finding themselves frustrated. So I see that SoundSuccess is helping people develop confidence in a starting point, because when you can determine where to start and you start seeing success, you're going to be more likely to stick to the task. It also will help you as you want to relay information to your audiologist or to your therapist when they say, "Oh, how's it going?" Rather than you saying, "Oh, it's fine," you can actually say, "Well, I'm finding that I am able to understand sentences, or I'm understanding without seeing the lip reading on the communication on the program." You can also just really answer some specific questions about feeling confident. I feel confident with sentences when I know the topic, for example. And then you might say, I really struggle when I'm not familiar with the topic, or when I can't see the speaker's face. That just gives you some more specific ideas about where to go and what's coming next. It also will reassure you and build confidence for real life, and may help give you some strategies. So when someone comes to you and asks you a question, and where you otherwise maybe would just pretend you knew the answer or not respond appropriately, you might say, "Could you say that again? Could you say that a little more slowly?" Because you know that from your experience with SoundSuccess that you have better success when it's a speaker that you can see their face, or when they speak a little more clearly. So let's change the slide. You do that for me, Val? I can't go to the next slide.
Sorry, Krista, I am trying to advance the slide
Okay.
for you, but it's getting stuck and I couldn't get to my microphone. It was,
Oh, that's fine.
okay, so let me try that again. It's for some reason not advancing again. Let me try this. Nope. Okay. Maybe you can start as I try to get this to advance, Krista. Maybe you just want to
Sure.
talk on some tips on using SoundSuccess.
Sure. One of the things that I definitely would recommend is using the goal sheet that you can download from SoundSuccess, and outline some specific short-term and long-term goals. So if your goal ultimately is to be able to speak with your grandchildren on the phone, there it is. So if you want to speak with your grandchildren on the phone as a long-term goal, you're going to have some short-term goals in order to get to that ultimate goal. So maybe just by, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I would like to be able to understand sentences in quiet. Or I would like to be able to understand sentences or short paragraphs, or answer questions about paragraphs in a month or 3 months. It's just really important to set those goals for yourself, because accountability is very important. And if you establish time each day to work in SoundSuccess, you will find that you will see progress. It's just like exercising your body. Your brain is how we hear, and we really need to exercise the brain and help it remember what those words and what those sounds are. And it also helps to challenge you, because if you're finding that the person on there with the Southern accent is easier to understand than the person with the New York accent, then maybe you want to advance from the Southern accent to the gentleman who has the New York accent. So you may want to be able to, challenge yourself before you jump out into the real world and start talking with unfamiliar people. maybe if you set goals each day and say, you know, just like when you're starting an exercise program, it's very similar to that. I'm going to exercise 20 minutes a day, and you're not going to, you know, sprint for 20 minutes a day. You're going to, you know, walk, and then you might jog, and then you might run a little bit, and then you might walk again. It's the same thing. You're going to practice a set number of minutes a day and really set that time aside for yourself, and you will be very glad that you did. Also, it would be nice if you can enlist an accountability partner if you're one of those people that really needs somebody to stay on you. Or some people like a checklist to check off, you know, I practiced today, checking it off, or today I did 30 minutes, tomorrow I want to do 40 minutes. You just want to make sure that you're staying on task and practicing. And also just trying not to become frustrated as the tasks become more difficult, because that's the way you're going to stretch your skills, is to try things that are a little more challenging. And then once you've been able to do all of the tasks, or most of them in quiet, use the program to add some noise. When I was a therapist working in a clinic and would work with adults, we would often work on skills in the quiet room, and then I would actually take them outside where we were next to a busy highway, and we would do some of the same activities with traffic noise behind us. And so this would be a really nice way to do this on your own, to add the noise on the SoundSuccess program. So those are just some of the tips that I would recommend based on from a clinical standpoint, but also just from a realistic standpoint.
Thanks, Krista. Now we're going to hear from Tina, and she will give us some insights and tips from an audiologist point of view.
Thank you, Valerie. Hi, everyone. So just a little bit of history about me. I actually became an audiologist first, and then I lost my hearing after I had already been practicing audiology. So I lost it and I can't find it. So when I think back to my time when I became deaf, and this was almost 20 years ago. Wow. Back in the day, and I'm so glad that they developed something for adults, because back in the day, in the early 2000s, there really wasn't anything. It was recommended that we do things like books on tape, and not 8-track tape, not that far back, but yes, cassette tapes. So I had like this big thing that I would get from the library, and I would put in tape, 18 if I was listening to a long book or something like that. And I'm so thankful that, there's now this great tool that you guys can use. So what I'm going to talk about are some of my my thoughts, not only as an audiologist, but someone that's still is going through mappings. I now have bilateral cochlear implants. I did go through hearing aids. I did oral rehabilitation therapy. And so these are some of my thoughts. So it's already been mentioned, Krista was talking about your accountability person. I might call them their communication partner. That statistic was really interesting to me, Valerie, that you were saying that 26% of people live alone. If you have a communication partner, try to involve them. Maybe have a sit down with them and think about goals and areas that you want to improve. Valerie talked about the Set Your Hearing Goals sheet that you can download. That's a great place to start. So from my perspective, as a deaf audiologist, when I think about goals, sometimes I think about how am I supposed to know what I'm missing? I can't hear it, so how do I know I need to work on that? That was the advantage of things like having my husband go through therapy with me and help me out, because he would notice things that I maybe didn't notice. For those of us that, have a spouse that will say things like, you're really not hearing well, I would get so frustrated. I'm like, I'm hearing fine. You're the one that's mumbling, when you know what, actually he was right. I needed to get a map check or something like that. The other advantage of involving your communication partner is that you get a perspective, you think you know what you hear or you don't hear, but then you hear their perspective and it's completely different than what you're thinking. So that can help you set some realistic and very functional goals as well. The next bullet point talks about immersing yourself. You know, and as Valerie and Krista have already mentioned, we need to immerse ourselves. I think about getting a cochlear implant or getting a hearing aid in the same vein as learning a new language. You're not going to become fluent in that language as fast if you don't immerse yourself. So someone that wears their device 12 hours a day is going to make faster progress and more progress than someone that only wears it 4 hours a day. So if you are not wearing your device for many hours a day, you need to ask yourself why. Does it hurt in your ear? Does it sound really bad? Are you getting really frustrated? If that's the case, that's the perfect opportunity to talk to your audiologist about what the options are and what things that you guys can do to improve. I talk about that you may still need to remind people eye contact before ear contact. So that's one of my favorite phrases. And what that means is especially for those of you that are new to the hearing loss journey, it's easy to still get frustrated. And how many times have people said, oh, well, you have a hearing aid or you have cochlear implants now, then you should hear fine. No, you might still need to remind people that you need to have some visual cues and help with things like that. All right. So before you do any kind of oral rehabilitation or any kind of listening therapy, the first thing I would suggest is make sure that your equipment is working. You know, are your batteries fresh? Are your filters changed and cleaned the way that they need to be? For those of us that have advanced Bionics cochlear implants, you know, the T-mic, the one that sits in our ear, is it working the way that it should be? Are you in the right program? So those kind of things will prepare you so that you're in your best listening kind of mode for doing therapy. And then also things like your volume. So, you know, I had talked to Valerie, when you set the volume on whatever device that you're going to listen to, what I would recommend is maybe on like one of those sheets that you can download, writing down, where did you set the volume? You know, if your phone has something where it'll tell you like different bars, say 50% or 75%, make sure that you make note of that. So the next time you go to do your therapy, that you can start in the same place at the same volume. Same thing with the program on your hearing aid or cochlear implant. Okay. And I know that Krista already talked about this too. And one of the things that I think we tend to do when we're trying to work on a skill and we're thinking about progress is, I know I've had friends say, well, gosh, look how well she's doing, you know, with her hearing aid, or look how well he's doing with this cochlear implant. Why can't I do what they're doing? You can't compare yourself with other people. You can only compare yourself to you, because your hearing loss and the cause of your hearing loss and your auditory memory, everybody has their own kind of brain map for auditory memory. It could be very different. So I encourage you, when you think about progress, look at where you started and look at where you go. That's the progress that you need to be focusing on. And for those of you that are on social media, if you feel like venting or anything like that, social media is actually a great place to say, hey, you know, I'm feeling a little bit discouraged. I need a pep talk, or does anybody have any ideas so that I can improve? So I'm a big fan of going to social media and just getting some cyber hugs or some ideas. All right, so next slide, please, Valerie.
Okay, Tina, I'm trying to advance, and there we go. Okay.
Okay, so this next slide is talking about what do you do when you go to your audiologist after you've been using SoundSuccess. Both Valerie and Krista have talked about a lot of these things already, so here are some ideas that I had. So I don't go anywhere without my phone. And so one of the things that I do when I go to the audiologist is that I make sure that before I leave the audiologist's office, I will think about the next time that I want to come back. And even if it's not going to be in 1 month or 2 months, I will make it at least annually. Most people don't think about the fact that even if we have hearing aids or cochlear implants especially, that our hearing can still fluctuate sometimes. So even if you don't need that appointment, at least it's in your calendar and it makes you think that, oh, it's been a long time since I've talked to my audiologist. So that's something that I recommend. And as Krista said, that question, as an audiologist, I do this all the time too. I'll have a patient come in and they've had hearing aids or cochlear implant for a while. And I work with kids mostly, but I'll be like, so how's it going? And they look at me and they don't really have an answer. Well, with SoundSuccess and keeping track of your progress, now you will have something that you can share with them. So the next one is, did you recently go bilateral? So there's 2 kinds of bilateral. You could be what's called simultaneous bilateral, meaning you got your implants or your hearing aids kind of at the same time. Or this pertains more to cochlear implants. You could have sequential, where you get 1 implant, wait a number of years, and then you get a second cochlear implant. Well, with SoundSuccess, you can change the different, what you're listening to for all the different practice things that you're going to be doing. So you could do with your first device only, your second device only, or both devices together. I really love the flexibility of SoundSuccess for things like that. In terms of sharing your results, so as Krista was mentioning also, what you hear, what you don't hear, what you like, what you don't like is information that can help the audiologist. If you say things like, I did really, really well with the male voices, but I noticed that the female voices were a little bit harder. Well, there are things that sometimes the audiologist can adjust to help you hear the different voices better. I know that in talking with people that are grandparents, being able to hear their grandchildren is something that's very important to them, but it's also probably the hardest thing to hear. They're quiet, they mumble, they have really high-pitched voices. That's the kind of stuff that you want to talk about with your audiologist. And then the other thing too is I'm thinking about like a programming. So what I like to do after I get a new program, like after I've been adjusted a little bit, I like to keep my old program, the one that I came into the office with, I like to keep that as a backup program on my processor. So let's say I get this new program and I realize, wow, this just really doesn't sound very good. I can always go back to my old program. So, many devices now have 4 or 5 slots for different programs. And so it's nice that we have that option. All right, so next slide, please. So the last thing I want to talk about, and I would be absolutely remiss if I did not talk about hearing assistive technology. That's what a lot of people know me for, so they call me Techie Tina. So I'm not going to really go in depth about, the different kinds of technology, but I just want you guys to think about that the different devices that you're going to be using, whether it's a computer or a tablet or a mobile phone, talk to your audiologist, talk to other people that are using hearing aids and cochlear implants, and think about different ways that you can connect. So that if you want to listen in the car or on your commute on the train or on an airplane, that you do have other options rather than just using speakerphone or using the computer speakers. There are lots of different things that you can do. You can even do things like change different programs on your hearing aids or cochlear implants. So that's all, options that you have. The other way that you can use SoundSuccess with this is, so let's say you have one program and you do SoundSuccess, and then you try it with another program and you do even better with SoundSuccess. You can figure out what is it about this program that makes it better. So it's just another, piece of data that you can use to communicate with your audiologist. And those are the tips that I have.
Okay, looks like we do have some questions, and I want to encourage anybody listening in, if you'd like to ask a question of Valerie, Krista, or Tina, just go ahead and post that in the Q&A. It occurs to me that there's no bluffing with SoundSuccess. It appears that when you're working through this program, the immediate feedback is so valuable, but I'm wondering how much time does it take really on a daily basis? I know it's very difficult sometimes to fit in 30 minutes to go for a walk. I would imagine that's probably one of the biggest complaints from people, is that they just don't have enough time in the day. So how much time is recommended per day?
So I think I'm going to turn this back over to Krista's recommendation. I think the beautiful thing about SoundSuccess is that you can use it anytime, on any device, anywhere, and at your own pace. I think you need to decide on a goal that's realistic for you, that you can meet. So even if that means that you have 10 minutes a day, then stick with that 10 minutes a day. I think consistency is key. So try to be consistent. Don't be hard on yourself, just like with an exercise program, that if you skip or miss a day because you have to, that's okay. But I would say that pick a goal that's realistic for you. Did anyone else want to add to that?
I would just add that the nice thing as well for me, when I am in there playing with it and I'll come back in, you can pick back up where you left off. So let's say you're in the car rider line picking up your grandchildren or your children and you're waiting, and then, oh, you've got to go, then you can close it out and you can pick back up later where you left off. And so it's really okay. It's kind of a come back to it thing. And so I would definitely agree that not to put so much pressure on yourself, but to have a goal to at least do an activity a day on there.
And will somebody start to notice improvement, in the first week that they are using SoundSuccess, say if they're using it 20, 30 minutes a day? And, I'm the type of person, if I don't see immediate results, I get frustrated. Will I see improvement in my hearing that quickly?
I think it's going to take time for, everybody's going to be different with that. One example I have is as a gentleman who was really struggling with his hearing, and he had not been using SoundSuccess, and he wasn't feeling like he was doing very well. And when we sat down and went through the program a little bit, and I started him with the really, less challenging things, he said, I can do this. He was like, oh, I can do this. And so seeing that little bit of success really helped. And I think it really is important to start at the beginning and start to see success, and then you're going to be more likely to stick with it.
And this is Tina. I'm thinking too, when they were talking about having the different goals per day, if you are not able to be an active participant in doing auditory therapy, keep your hearing devices on still, because your brain, if it's exposed to sound even passively, it's better than being, not being able to hear anything. So that's what I talk about, like wearing your device as many hours a day as you can, that can help. And then also talking to what Krista was talking about with noticing success. I know that sometimes I've talked to people and they say, I understand nothing, and they think 0%. And then I will get them in the booth and I'll show them that, wow, you actually get like 60%. And they're like, wow, I had no idea. So again, this is like raw numbers and, comparing your baseline, like where you started with how much progress that you make, that's the success that we're measuring right there.
Mm-hmm. I was intrigued about the speech reading part of it too, because we get a lot of requests for speech reading classes. Where can I find a speech reading class? And usually it's in, somebody's asking that is in the middle of nowhere. So I'm just wondering, could this be used as just a speech reading tool?
I would answer.
Wait, we can't hear you. So,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I would say that it wasn't developed to be used solely to practice speech reading. And for speech reading training, I think that there could be a better approach. However, I do think that we have purposely put challenges in as you get to the higher level to make speech reading more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But as just a purely speech reading program, I don't think we've built in the proper supports for it to be just a purely speech reading program, where to give you the feedback, and that's my immediate thought about that, because it wasn't developed to be that. It's incorporated to use speech reading to supplement what you're hearing. And you'll see that as you progress through the program, the position of the speaker's faces, how they tilt or turn their face, the expressions that they use, how their eye contact might shift in the more advanced programs, challenges your speech reading abilities, but I would not say that it was developed purely just for speech reading practice. Tina or Krista, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, I was going to say too that sometimes having that score, like speech reading versus no speech reading, is also validation for some people, saying, this is why I need you to look at me when we talk. My brain is still learning. I'm still trying to figure this out. So I need that extra information. Because I think that's really important that they can have that comparison, because it's the same sentence, just with and without visual cues. And you can say, I do much better when I can see your face. This is why.
I know we've heard from people that, after they get their hearing aids, or mostly after they are just activated with their cochlear implant, they say, oh, going to rehab, the oral rehab program, it's too far away, or, I'd have to go after work in rush hour. There's that complaint. Could this be used in place of the oral rehab that's recommended after activation, or would you use just to supplement that rehab?
Right. I think that the program is intended to give you access. So that's one of the advantages of the program, access to remote rehabilitation. I think that you should talk with your center and with your team. There are some circumstances where somebody might require more support than just this distance teletherapy approach. And so I think that's something you should talk with your audiologist, or if you do have an auditory verbal therapist or a speech language pathologist that you're working with, to ask them. But it is intended to be an online training program that you can use to help habilitate your ability to hear speech and perceive speech better. So, but then I just want to caution that it's never intended to say that there is not any use or value in a live session. I think it just depends on person to person what your needs are, but certainly this is something that can help to reach those people who might not be able to access a rehabilitation center, or don't have the time schedule doesn't permit it. They need to schedule a time that's outside of office hours to train on their own. So that's the way I would suggest using this program. Tina, Krista, do you want to add to that?
Just that I think that it's a nice support, and as you discussed the access, often reimbursement can be an issue for live therapy sessions. Distance can be something. And we do know that, people are really busy, and taking a whole day off work to get to a live therapy session can be challenging. So this will not take the place of that completely, but it definitely can supplement that and give you something where there may be nothing. I think that's what I would
Right.
say.
Yeah, and I just want to point out again that there's the research that says that an online auditory rehabilitation is beneficial and that you actually do see success. And so that is the reason that we developed this, because we do know that there's realistic obstacles to an in-person rehabilitation training session.
Once I get really good, I go through all the tasks. I've done the complete SoundSuccess program. Would you recommend that I continue to do it, maybe even less frequently, just to kind of keep myself tuned up?
So I think the great thing about SoundSuccess is it allows you many different challenge levels. So I think that if you're ready to challenge yourself, the questions I would ask is, are you able to work with no visual cues, so no speech reading? Are you able to do those exercises in noise? And if you feel that you're confident and that you can work through noise, you don't need listening cues, then you're doing fabulous, because I think that some of the exercises in the program, I have hearing, I don't have a hearing loss, and some of them I find challenging as well. So I think, though, that if you feel that you're confident and that you're engaging in everything that you've wanted to do without challenges, I say congratulations, you've done great work, and then you're ready to graduate. Do you want to add to that, Tina or Krista?
I was thinking, I think two things that people strive for, like the gold standard, are being able to hear on the phone and being able to enjoy music. So kind of related to SoundSuccess, probably it would be about the phone use. That would be the best kind of measure of how much you're really benefiting from your device. And so I think that if you feel like you're doing well with SoundSuccess and you want to take the next challenge, then something that you could try would be trying to have a phone conversation and seeing how you do, because with the phone, there are no visual cues unless you're doing something like FaceTime or something like that. So I remember when I was doing auditory training, that when I was able to talk on the phone, I was so excited, because I thought, this is what I'm working for. I want to be able to talk on the phone or be able to hear, with less work in a noisy setting. So for me, I think that the next goal would be that. And then I talk about my husband sometimes. He always challenged me, he'd talk to me and then he'd switch languages just to see if I was paying attention. And then the other thing that occurred to me for auditory only and also listening in noise, if you can do an audiobook in the car while you're driving, that's really good. And I challenged myself pretty early on, not on purpose so much, but Harry Potter books with the crazy accents. I was doing that in the car and I did okay, but I had to work really, really hard to do that. But those are just different ways that you can, other kinds of exercises that you can do to say, okay, so let's do this in a real world conversation. Can I talk to my kids in the car if they're sitting in the back seat and I'm not lip reading them? So that's what I'm thinking.
That's great, Tina. Also, you made me think of, within SoundSuccess, we have the different dialects. So working through the different dialects, and then there is a UK English. So if you want to really up the ante and you'd like to try a British accent, you can go for that as well. So thanks.
Okay, I think that's probably about all the time. We just have about a minute left, and unless there's, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any final thoughts this evening?
No, thank you for everybody's time. And I think, just in summary, as we talked about, SoundSuccess offers you that option to do rehabilitation outside of your audiologist's office, and it will allow you really to work on any device, anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. So my slides aren't advancing, but in summary, I'm trying to get to our final slide that shows our email addresses for all of us. So if you have any further questions, then feel free to contact us at these email addresses.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been very informational and beneficial, and I think this is a great tool for people to use. We'll definitely steer them in your direction. Just one final question I had, and I know that this is probably a silly question, but I just want to make sure that anybody that is interested in the program, what kind of thing do they need to log in with? Do they just create a login? Is there any fee or anything like that that they should know about up front?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Nancy. So you just need to go to the abrehabportal.com. It's a free program. It's free to anybody. There will be a registration that may be required. So you just need to fill out the registration form, answer the questions, and then you can just return back into that rehab portal to access the program. But it's a free program available to anybody who would like to use the program.
Sounds too good to be true. It looks like a great program. Thank you very much for presenting tonight. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Jody, for providing part tonight. Thanks. You, and happy Thanksgiving to you all.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Good night.